You're listening to the Money Monopolizers Podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What it do, baby? What's good, everybody? It's Alex Kamuya here. We are back with episode 9 of the Money Monopolizers Podcast. I am here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, what it do?
Man, what it do, man? Yeah, it's all good, bro. Yeah, I ain't got too much going on right now. I'm ready for another episode, though. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Ready to knock this one out. Put up another good episode. Other than that, not too much going on. Same old, trying to find deals. Doing what we got to do on that front and doing what we got to do on this front. So,
let's get it done, man.
Yeah, all things considered, things are good. That's all. Let's get to this episode today. So today, what we will be talking about is the key to being wealthy, and it is not money. So, one thing about achieving wealth is there's a lot of different factors that have to be considered, have to be taken into consideration, and that a person, a lot of different qualities that a person has to have in order to achieve wealth. If it's not, just inherited wealth, if it's a self-made wealth or self-created wealth, there's certain, inherent qualities that a person needs to have. Some being more important than others, and have a higher weight than others. And what we are talking about today is one of them, the most important one. So one thing I think in life, you have to ask, what is the fundamental difference between people who do succeed at something versus those who don't, right? And to me, I think the biggest difference is what they know and how they apply it. It's very fundamental. That is the core of it, right? So what do you know and how are you applying that knowledge to what you know, right? So, for example, for someone just look at, some of the billion-dollar corporations out there and the people that started them. So, for example, someone like Bill Gates, he knew about software programming and computer science, and he used that knowledge to create what is now known as Microsoft. And Phil Knight, he knew about track shoes, right? And he used that knowledge to create what's now known as Nike. Jeff Bezos, he understood e-commerce and how that worked. And so he used that knowledge to create Amazon. And now he's the richest man in the world. So, but even on a smaller scale too, just looking at if you see someone that gets an A on an exam, they either studied for it and they gained the knowledge, or they just knew the material and applied it to the exam, right? So they knew something and they applied it. And when you're becoming a wealthy person, it's the same principles applied, right? So what you know and how you apply it. So that's why I think the fundamental difference between the wealthy and everyone else is financial intelligence. And that's the key to, achieving wealth. It's not money. More money only compounds the issue. It's if I giving money to a person without financial intelligence, honestly, if you gave a crackhead crack to alleviate their crack addiction, they're just gonna be more addicted to crack. So it's you can't be doing that. You have to approach it from another perspective. You have to ask yourself, what is the root of the problem, right? The surface level is never the problem. That's just the presenting behavior. Not having money is the presenting behavior. So the root of the problem is not having financial intelligence. And this actually reminds me of something in communication and negotiation. You have to understand how in communication and negotiation, you have to understand how emotions work in order to get people to do what you want, right? So there's always two levels to emotions. You have a presenting behavior, which is what you see and what you hear, and the underlying feeling, which is what motivates the behavior, right? So, for example, anger causes someone to yell or cry, but there's a motive for that anger. And you have to address the underlying emotions in order to make people feel like they're being understood and heard, not the presenting behavior. So, and money problems present themselves the same way. You have to understand what is the root of the problem. The problem isn't having money. The problem is not having financial intelligence. That's the real issue, right? So the same thing applies to the examples that I was talking about earlier with Bill Gates and Phil Knight. And if someone gave a young Bill Gates a software code and he didn't know anything about software coding, then is Microsoft still formed? Probably not by him. If someone gave you Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman track shoes and they know nothing about track shoes or running track, then is Nike still formed? Well, probably not by them. So, I mean, if I give a poor man with no financial intelligence $10,000, I shouldn't expect him to go get me a return of 50,000. No, that's what you see with lottery winners and pro athletes, right? They go broke. They're not going to be able to get you a return because they're going to spend all the money. So you just got to approach it from that perspective of what do I know or what do I know and how do I apply it in order to achieve that wealth, right? So financial intelligence is the key to achieving wealth, not money or any other thing. Financial intelligence is the core principle.
And I wish so much that more people understand what you're saying with financial intelligence versus money, because in society, so many people feel like more money will solve their problems. That's why one time I saw on a Twitter poll that it said, would you rather have $3 million today in your bank account, or would you rather have $4,000 per week for the rest of your life? And I can't tell you the number of people that I saw that responded with $3 million right now. So let's analyze. I really don't like that answer, because just the basis of how people view money. Why is this bad? Basically, because in another year or two, you're going to be answering for another $3 million, because I promise you, you don't have the financial intelligence to use that money to build on itself. More than likely, you're going to spend that money on, you're going to probably buy a new house, a new car. You might buy a plane. I've heard that said multiple times. And I'm like, man, y'all, I don't know, man. Because as soon as you start making more money, you typically start spending more money. Mm-hmm. And that's income creep that we talked about before. And the problem with this is that you'll deplete all your income, and you'll deplete that entire $3 million, and then you don't have nothing left over. So my thoughts are just to go with that $4,000 per week. So there's multiple reasons behind that, because for one, it's passive income. Yeah. Two, $16,000 is what you'll be making per month. I don't know who out here is making $16,000 that's listening to us right now, but I'm sure that you're not. But they rather turn that down.
Hey, chill. Someone might be.
Okay, well, it's probably like 99.9% not. And there's probably that one that is listening to us. That's fine. That's perfect. So you cool. But most people have never seen $16,000 in 1 month coming into their bank account. So why are you going to turn that down for the rest of your life for that one-time $3 million? Whereas you'll probably go spend all of that and not have any money left over in, say, 2-3 years. And I promise you, people do spend the money that fast. So don't think that that's impossible. That's why most lottery winners do end up broke in the next 3, 4, 5 years, because they have no financial intelligence to say, let's utilize this money to grow on itself.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's all about, these people just want instant gratification. I think it goes back to, having financial intelligence, right? And, being able to know how you could easily turn that $4,000 a week into, something far greater than that $3 million that you'll get right now, right? Yeah. And so it's like, so if you don't know anything about your money or your finances, you can't expect to build wealth. I can't expect that person that's getting $4,000 a week to be able to build wealth or create a return greater than $3 million. They don't know how. So, it's kind of like that you got to look at what the root of the problem is again, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing I always hear people say too is like when they're looking at rich people and kind of judging them, and because a lot of people judge rich people or wealthy people, and a lot of times a lot of people are always saying like, oh, they were just born into that wealth, right? I'm sure you've heard that a lot, and then you were, I know you mentioned it on one of the posts that we were talking about earlier this week too. So, but to me, it's like, so what if they were born into the wealth? Big deal. Does that mean that you can't be wealthy just because someone else was born into the wealth? No, it doesn't. Why can't your kids be born into wealth too, like they were? So it's like you got to shift that perspective. And another thing I always hear people say is, oh, they got lucky. Well, yeah, maybe they did, but I guarantee you, what people don't understand is they put themselves in a position to get lucky, right? A lot of times people give too much. We give too much credit to luck. We don't give enough credit to the actual person or the efforts that they put in. And I seriously believe that, we create our own luck, and that's for everything. There's actually an acronym for that I like to go by, and for luck, right? LUCK, laboring under correct knowledge. That is the acronym that I like to go by whenever I try to think of, oh, how can I put myself in a position to achieve this? Well, I need to be laboring under the correct knowledge, right? I need to be able to get lucky. So I need to be putting myself in that position, right? If I got lucky, I put myself or if I got lucky, I was putting in the work based on something I knew I should be doing to achieve something. Like, for example, in real estate, or let's say I ran into like a wholesaler that has a great deal with a potential to make 100K profit, and they're going to wholesale it to me. Now, when someone asks me how I found that deal, I could just say, oh, a wholesaler brought it to me. But what they didn't see was me studying and running numbers for those 6 months and me improving my financial intelligence, right? They didn't see me going to those networking events to meet those wholesalers, right? So I was putting myself into a position to get lucky. I was laboring under correct knowledge. I had the wherewithal to be able to do this because I know it's going to lead to this. No, even though I don't see it, I know it's going to lead to something. So I put myself in that position to get lucky. It's, you just got to think of it from that perspective.
Problem with people viewing wealthy people is they always want to operate on this fairness system. Everybody feels like people always say everybody's created equal, for one. That is correct. I feel like everybody has the same opportunities to gain in life, but they may not start with the same background. So some people may start in poverty, some people may start off wealthy, but that has no correlation to where you can end up at in your life. I do believe in that, but it does take that financial know-how to get to do that. Now, one thing I was thinking about is imagine, goes back to that fairness thing. Imagine if I did a deal with you and said, I'll give you $100 for this. And then I went and did a deal with somebody else and I gave them $1,000 for it. But they asked for that $1,000. I offered them $100, but they asked for $1,000. So I give them $1,000. I'm like, yeah, I'd probably pay $5,000 for it, but you wanted $1,000, here you go. But you would be mad because I paid you $100 for it, but you didn't ask for it either. So, but you agreed to it. That's what I meant to say. So why are you mad at me for giving somebody else something else, for giving somebody else a higher amount of money? And that's that fairness thing. People want to be treated equally no matter what the circumstance. And I'm just sorry to say that's not reality. Some people may start in a better situation than you, but why let that be the reason that you're mad at them? Instead of being mad at them, change your own personal reality, change your mindset and say, I need to take action now to get to where they are. And then guess what? Once you get to that point and you're able to have generational wealth, you'll pass it down to your children who are born into wealth. And then people are going to be looking at your children like, oh, man, they were born into wealth. But they're not looking at the person who did the work to get to that point of having that generational wealth.
Yeah. So Marlon was talking about, how people view the wealthy and, talking about people operating on a fairness system and that kind of thing. But, anyone really has the capability of becoming wealthy. Everyone does. And there's like one common denominator between everyone. And it's exactly what we're talking about. It's that whole financial intelligence thing. That's the common denominator between everyone that is wealthy, right? Or anyone that has created their own wealth. They have financial intelligence to be able to do that. So that's available to anyone. We can all, kind of increase our financial intelligence to become wealthy. And the thing about financial intelligence gives you more options and opportunities to become wealthy. That's how important. That's another reason financial intelligence is so important. I personally think, I think it's a lot easier today than it was in the past to become wealthy. And, I'm speaking from a limited perspective. I'm only 23, but, just based off of history, which is, set in stone, I can guarantee you it's a lot easier today than it was 100 years ago. Because the period that we're in now, we're in the beginning of the age of technology and the internet. It's an unprecedented time in our world's history, right? So you have to take advantage of the age that we're in right now if you want to become wealthy. It's kind of like, right, the era we're in right now is like the start of a new era. The old era has died. And when I'm speaking of eras, I'm talking about how people have created wealth. So with the technology age, it starts a new era for how people are creating wealth. So 300 years ago, wealthy people, those are the people that just own land. If you own land and cattle and something like that, you were wealthy. But today, you don't have to. It's not the only way to get wealthy. And then, 300. You talking 300 years ago. Even after that, there was the Industrial Revolution, right? So then, at that time, in the late, mid to late 1800s and 19th, 20th century, that's when if you own factories and you were mass producing things, you were wealthy then. So that entered another way to become wealthy, right? So you had land 300 years ago. Then some years later, century later, you get factories and the Industrial Revolution, and that's now another way to become wealthy. But now today, leading from that, because we're kind of, that era is kind of dying now. And today, wealth is in information, and wealth is in like what you know. So the person who has the timely information has the wealth, because that's another thing too. It's so easy to access information today that you can literally know anything you want in a matter of seconds. I can ask my phone what anything is, and I'll have an answer. Just that advantage alone, that fact alone gives you an advantage over, hundreds of years prior to this, just because like now, they didn't have access to that. So that changes things in itself. And information, that's another thing to know about. Information travels extremely fast. So wealth today can't be contained by, any sort of geographical boundaries or borders like in the past. In the past, if you were, if you lived in a certain area, it was probably harder to get rich or harder to become wealthy. Yeah, it's still like that to an extent today, but I'm telling you, with the introduction of technology, no one is limited. Even the poorest people I'd say in America, that, if you have access to internet, or you can at least, you have access to the knowledge to become wealthy, the information to become wealthy. So like just, that alone and how fast information travels and a combination of all that is going to lead to us seeing a huge, dramatic increase in the number of multimillionaires in the world as opposed to, years past. So you're going to see a lot more Bill Gates, a lot more Phil Knights, a lot more Jeff Bezos. You're going to see a lot more of them, a lot more Mark Zuckerbergs, because information is so easy to access now. And so now people are going to be becoming, wealthy just honestly by accident. Some people, just because you won't even be trying to, you're just really genuinely interested in something, you're learning about it, and going back to what I said, you learn something and you apply it. So now it's a lot easier to learn something and apply it now. So you got to be able to take advantage of that. There's so much info and so many resources available for people to learn anything you want. You got to try to leverage this to develop your financial education through, podcasts like this. We giving out free game on here. So this is, something to leverage. It's something that wasn't available in the past, but now it is. Articles, books, anything, all that kind of stuff. You got to leverage it to, your advantage so that you can, at least give you some sort of advantage to become wealthy, because everyone has access to it. So you're either going to, use it or you're not. And so you can have the money, you can have the time, but without the financial intelligence, you could have opportunities sitting right in front of you and you're going to miss them. So you just got to be aware of that.
That's an interesting point you made. You said you can have a deal sitting right in front of you. I just thought about in real estate, when you first get started in real estate, you really don't know what a deal looks like. So some deals you may be sitting straight in your face. You'd be like, oh, you can make $30,000 on that one deal, but you might miss it because you don't have the financial intelligence to spot it when it's actually sitting in front of your face. But I thought it's a podcast that we listened to a while back says as you gain that financial intelligence, as you understand a little bit more about whatever niche you're in as far as investing, you got to be blind to not see a deal, because once you actually have the technical know-how or know what a deal looks like, it's like straight in your face. It's like, bro, you have to be blind to not see this deal. And that's a lot of that comes from financial intelligence mainly.
Yeah. And, just commenting on that, because I know in real estate, you can have no money, but if a deal or the opportunity becomes available and you have the financial intelligence and understanding of how money works and how real estate works, you can make it happen. They call it creative financing. So there's ways to make it happen, but I'm telling you, financial intelligence is the common denominator through it all. That's a control variable. It's the one thing that you can control in everything. The amount of financial intelligence you have is going to determine how successful you are in building wealth. I think, financial intelligence or another thing to, another way to look at it also is financial intelligence is not so much what happens, but how many different financial solutions you can think of to turn a problem into money, right? How are you turning lemons into millions? So it's how creative you are in solving financial problems, because the people that are financially intelligent can solve financial problems in many different ways. They have a huge arsenal or a huge, a versatile tool belt in how they can solve financial problems. But for most people, they only have one solution. That's just to work, save hard, and they borrow money. So that's how most people approach it. But you got to change your perspective and know that financial intelligence is the key to any sort of wealth creation.
It's so easy to believe that more money will solve all of the world's problems. As a society, we've been convinced that because money is what runs the world. For example, Bernie Sanders recently unveiled a proposal to tax Wall Street an additional 0.5% in order to erase all student loan debt in America. That's $1.6 trillion of student loan debt canceled. Sounds good, right? Well, what are colleges and universities going to do when they see that tuition is free now? They're going to raise tuition. Why not? It's free now. So then what happens? Tuition goes up and someone's going to have to pay for it. So don't be surprised in the future when you get an education tax coming out your paycheck. And look, please don't debate me on this. This show ain't about politics. The point I'm making is that when you throw more money at an issue, that usually just compounds the underlying bigger issue. Right now, the cost of tuition is crazy expensive. However, paying off all student loan debt will likely inadvertently raise the cost of college tuition. Ironic. And look, don't get me wrong. I'm all for canceling student loan debt if it could be done through a more holistic approach. I just use this as an example of how we often don't look at the root of the problem. What about a proposal to address the bigger issue, the cost of college tuition? So once again, when it comes to money problems, we gotta have a paradigm shift and stop looking at the surface level issue. For most money problems, especially regarding personal finance, you gotta dig deeper. Money is the vehicle used, but the knowledge and intelligence is what actually solves the problems. Speaking of personal finance, I can't count how many times I've heard or seen someone win a good amount of cash and say they're going to use it to pay off debt. When people do that, they don't realize that's a missed opportunity. Let's think. What is the root of the problem here? The root of the problem isn't that you don't have money to pay off the debt. That's the surface level issue. The main problem is that you have liabilities and bad debt in the first place that is preventing you from building wealth. Gaining that financial intelligence will solve both the root problem and surface level problem. So how would someone with financial intelligence approach this situation and solve the surface level problem? Well, put simply, they would take the $10,000, parlay it into $15,000 with an investment vehicle of their choosing, pay off their debt, and pocket $5,000 to reinvest. So if right now you're thinking, well, I don't know how to turn $10,000 into $15,000. Then you possibly just discovered the root of many of your financial issues. That is lack of financial intelligence. When you have financial intelligence, you'll know the best way for you, keyword you, to get a return on that $10,000, or even not go into $10,000 worth of debt in the first place. Getting more money without the financial intelligence to accompany it is just a temporary solution to a long-term problem. You shouldn't be asking yourself how to get rich quicker. The real key to building wealth is building your financial literacy.
So we gotta be aware that the most powerful asset that we have as people is our mind. If you're training it well and you can create, if you're training it well, you can create huge wealth. Just the same way, if you're not training it, you can create extreme poorness. So with financial intelligence, that's the one thing that can't be taken away from you. Money can be taken away from you. Property can be lost. Your stocks can lose value, but your mind and what you know is always going to be in your control, right? And that's going to be with you forever. So financial intelligence can never be taken away with you or away from you. So that's very key to know.
I can't emphasize that enough, because I promise you, we could go flat broke today and we would still be able to escalate to where we want to get to. It may take a little longer. We may not be able to retire 28 and 32, but we would still have a financial know-how in order to get there. You'll be able to start from the ground up, and we'll probably be right back in this situation within a year or two. I could almost assure that if we fell flat on our face today, we would still be able to escalate to where we want to be, just because we have the technical know-how, we have the financial intelligence in order to get back there. And that's why it's so important to build your mindset and not just give you more money. The more money won't solve the problem.
Yeah, and we had a strong foundation. That's the foundational part of it all. We can't emphasize that enough. If you're trying to become wealthy and you don't know anything about money and how money works, and you don't have a strong foundation, you're not gonna build wealth unless you really get lucky. Then I mean, you really got lucky. Then we talking about real luck. Then
you got to be all the right people, be in all the right places at the right time. Everybody's just giving you money. Like that doesn't happen. You have to have some type of financial background, some type of foundation in order to create your luck, like we mentioned earlier.
Yes, exactly. So before you try to invest in anything, make sure you're developing your financial intelligence first. That's the fundamental key. Can't say it enough. Nothing less, nothing more. Financial intelligence. So now we're going to finish up this podcast same way we try to do every week. Last week it kind of got cut out, so sorry about that. But we're going to, try to make sure we get it in there this week, this Q&A. So if you have any questions that you like us to answer, hit us up on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We got one question for y'all this week. Marlon will be taking that.
All right, so this person asked, he basically said, I've been debating because my granny's house will become mine whenever she dies. Now, hopefully that's not anytime soon, but it's paid for and she owns it free and clear. But she still has to pay for like taxes and insurance and upkeep and stuff like that. He says when I take ownership of it, he's not sure if he wants to keep it and stay in it or try to find a duplex and sell it. So I'm going to give you one better than both of those. So you can keep it, but instead of just selling it flat out, I think what you should do is go find you that duplex or a triplex or a quadplex. All of those will still qualify for what I'm about to tell you. So find that multiplex, figure out how much it's going to cost, so that I'm talking about down payment, like 3 to 5%. I'm not saying 20%. We don't do 20% down payments. That's going to cost too much money. 3 to 5% down payment, factor in closing costs, maybe 2%, and then factor in repairs. Then what I want you to go do is to refinance your granny's home. Now, I'm going to put this caveat to it, or not really a caveat, but I want to say a lot of people are going to frown upon that because they have this big stigma about owning a home free and clear, but don't listen to those people. Those people don't have the same financial intelligence and background.
Those people are broke.
Listen to people that you want to be like in life. So if this is something that most people are not going to tell you, but refinance your granny's home in the amount that all of that is going to cost you. So the down payment, the closing costs, the repairs, figure out how much all that's going to cost to get that, then refinance that home to that amount. Then what I want you to do is to move into that multiplex and rent out the other units in that multiplex. And on top of that, also rent out your granny's house. Now you have 2 income properties, the multiplex and your granny's house, that are both going to bring you income every month. So now you have, all this was for the price of a 3 to 5% down payment of a home with a couple extra closing costs through into it. 2 rental units, just like that.
Yep.
So I wish you the best of luck, and anybody else who has that same question, maybe you can do the same thing.
Yep. Free game. So, okay. Well, that's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers Podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, or Friday on YouTube. But just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find out more info about us on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged, so check that out and share those posts. But until then, we out of here.
What it do, baby?
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers Podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.